Well, days after the United States slapped Canada with 35% tariffs, raising it from the previous 25%, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that he will speak with Donald Trump when it makes sense. The increased tariff, which the White House said was the result of Canada's continued inaction and retaliation, comes after Trump told reporters that the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney reached out ahead of an August 1st tariff deadline, but no conversations between the two actually took place. Trump, though, has warned that any country that does not strike a deal with the United States before Friday, the 8th of August, will be subjected to higher tariffs imposed on goods. But Mark Carney has warned that Canadian investment in the United States, which is already among the highest in the world, could decline if trade relations deteriorate and a new economic and security pact is not secured. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking all that's unfolding in Canada. She joins us live from Vancouver at this point. Maha, so Canada is going to speak to the United States when it makes sense?
That's what Mark Carney has said, and this despite the fact that the two countries are continuing to negotiate a trade deal, which is expected to bring down the tariffs for Canada. At the moment, they are 35% on all non-CUSMA compliant goods. CUSMA is the agreement between US, Canada and Mexico. And Canada believes that about 90% of its exports to the United States will fall under this agreement. So it's about 10% of the exports that are going to suffer. However, the big concern for Canada really is on the tariffs that are currently imposed on aluminum and steel, lumber, and on automobile sector. Now, the automobile sector has already seen the fallout of the high tariffs on that sector with job losses, and this is largely in the Ontario province. Meanwhile, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, was in the British Columbia province, the province from where I'm reporting at the moment. He has gone to Kelowna. Kelowna is one of the areas where there is a huge concentration of lumber exports. British Columbia alone is a place that is hugely dependent on lumber for its exports, largely dependent on the US, because 63% of the exports from Canada, from British Columbia specifically, are to the United States. And there's already been a soft lumber dispute with the United States from the year 2000 to 2022. And this is an industry that will largely be impacted by tariffs. So Mark Carney has also announced a support for this industry. So Canada is looking at ways and means of navigating this punishing tariff. They are also looking at breaking down interprovincial barriers to improve the trade from east to west, that is within Canada itself, and not be so dependent on exports to the United States, that is north to south trade. Moreover, it's also very keenly now looking at diversification. That's where countries like India will come into importance for Canada, because Canada is clearly looking at the Indo-Pacific as a region that it would want to trade more with. It is looking at Southeast Asian countries, to be specific, the ASEAN countries, the APEC countries largely. And India, of course, is a very important player in the Indo-Pacific. And this is also an arrangement that could look at fructifying over the next few years, because the kind of onslaught of tariffs that we're seeing from the Trump administration against many countries, Canada and India at the moment, one of the countries with the highest tariffs that US has imposed against.